Calculate measures of central tendency. So when we think about measures of central tendency, we have two of them that we're going to be talking about. Our first one is mean. Mean is the average of the data. You guys have been calculating mean or average since middle school. We calculate the mean of a data set by first adding up all of the data points in our set, and then we divide that sum by the total number of data points, okay? Our second measure of central tendency that we're going to talk about is median. Median is the middle data point in a data set. We calculate the median. Our first step is to order all of the data points from smallest to largest, and then we just cross off one on each side until we finally get to our very center data point. So that middle data point is the median, and then we can calculate mean by calculating the average of the data set. So we are going to find both mean and median for a data set. So let's start with mean. So here we have this data set, 45, 67, 55, 51, 81, 59, 66, 59, and 76. And my first step to calculating mean is to add up all of my data points. So I'm going to say into my calculator, I'm going to type in 45 plus 67 plus 55 plus 51 plus 81 plus 59 plus 66 plus 59 plus 76. And when I do that, I find that the sum of all of these data points is 559. So my first step is to add up all my data points. I have my sum. Now my second step is to divide that sum by the total number of data points. So I'm going to divide 559 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to divide it by 9 because I had 9 data points. And when I do that, I find that my mean of this data set rounds to 62.1. So the mean of this data set is 62.1. Now let's take this same data set and let's calculate the median. So thinking about median, my first step now is I want to order all of my data sets so that it goes from smallest to largest. So my smallest data point is 45. Then I have 51, 55. I have 2 59s. Next would come 66, 67, 76, and then 81. So now that all of my numbers are lined up smallest to largest, I'm going to cross off one on each side until I finally find my center data point. In this case, my center data point is 59, so my median for this data is 59. Now, when we think about our two measures of central tendency for this data set, median was 59, mean was 62.1. Those two values aren't that different. If I were to look at a histogram of this data, which is here, we can see that makes sense. Our data is pretty evenly distributed, right? We have a symmetrical kind of bell curve shape going on here. So because our data is symmetrical, both mean and median are pretty good measures of central tendency. They're close to each other. One is 62.1, one is 59. So both of them are pretty reliable measures of central tendency. Let's now think about a scenario where maybe one might be better than the other. To do that, we first need to think about outliers. So an outlier is a data point that is significantly different from the other data points in a set. So looking at this data set that I've included here, 13, 78, 80, 91, 89, 90, 82, 85, 83. 13 is very clearly an outlier. None of my other data points are lower than 78, and they're all between 78 and 91. So 13 is significantly different than all of the other points in my data set. So knowing that, first I want to calculate the mean of this data. So we're going to add up all of these data points together. We're going to do 13 plus 78 plus 80 plus 91 plus 89 plus 90 plus 82 plus 85 plus 83. When I do that, let's see what we get. Let me add them up real quick. Okay, when we add up all of these numbers, we get a sum of 691. Now I want to take that sum and I want to divide it by my total number of data points, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When I divide 691 by 9, I get that my mean is 76.8. Is that a very good measure of central tendency for this data set? Most of my data is higher than 78. It's 78 or higher. I have only one data point that's lower than 78. Yet this measure of central tendency is telling me that my center point, or my measure of central tendency is 76.8. So this mean is lower than the majority of my data points in this set. That tells me that this is not a very good measure of central tendency. Now let's think about median. So for median, first I need to order all of these values from smallest to largest. So my smallest value is 13, then I have 78, then I have, let's see, 80, 82, 83, 85, 89, 90, and then 91. Okay, I want to cross off one on each end until I get to my middle term. And this tells me that my median is 83. That is a much better measure of central tendency than mean. 83 is actually a middle point in that data, right? 76.8, my mean, was lower than the majority of my data, yet this median is right in the middle. So when we think about wanting to choose mean or median to measure our data, to measure the central tendency, we can choose mean if our data is evenly distributed. So if we're looking at a histogram and we have that nice symmetrical shape, mean is a great measure of central tendency. But if we have an outlier, or if our data is skewed in a histogram, then we are going to want to choose median as our measure of central tendency, because outliers will affect mean. Outliers do not have that same effect on the median.